This season, it feels like there's a swagger about Arsenal. There's a real confidence of, actually, we are the best team in this division. You should be worried about us. We don't have anything to prove. We know we can do this.
We back like the Los Angeles Dodgers. All Liverpool needed to do to return to form is drop most of their new signings. Arsenal, more clean sheets than Tide Pods. Erling Haaland scored twice and did the robot to try and throw us off the centre, believing that he is a robot. We won't be falling for that, Erling. Sean Dyche's Forest stopped United's winning run. Oh, an apt word for what's going on a certain United fan's head right now. And farewell, Vitor Pereira, sacked at Wolves. Proved you either die a hero or live long enough to have no points and no pints. What a time to be alive. As the Premier League kind of reverted to the mean this weekend, let's unpack it all with my pod friend, invigorated by the winds of Yorkshire, to joy to say, hey up, to Mr. Rory Smith.
Happy Bonfire Night week, Rog.
It is the big one. Yes, English Halloween, Bonfire Night.
It's toffee apples, which are just apples soaked in toffee.
Yep, good for your teeth.
Letting children get very close to fireworks, which is a terrible idea.
It's good for them. They learn.
It's forgetting that it's all about burning Catholics. It's just a great week.
What? Is it really burning Catholics?
That's historically what it was, yeah. The gunpowder plot was led by Catholics against the Protestant king, I think, at the time, not sure. And that is what the guy that is burnt on the bonfire is meant to represent. Guy Fawkes, a native of Yorkshire, Rog, yet another great Yorkshire achievement.
Was it really?
We tried to bring down the country, but we don't talk about the burning Catholics element of it anymore. And obviously, Catholics are welcome to enjoy it.
I've got to say, English holidays often, I'd say deep in their heart, but not really, when you probe a little bit beneath the skin, have quite horrific core celebratory themes. The less I know about them, the better. I do remember being at Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes essentially is English Halloween, although now English people do Halloween massively because America have exported it. I do remember tiny kids getting very close to fires or just fireworks going off, taking off fingers, and dad's just nodding. It's the only way they'll learn, which was kind of where I learnt parenting. But let's go from Guy Fawkes Night to the fireworks of the weekend, Raw. See what I did there. Your little Liverpool finally won a big boy game. I'm happy for you.
Plucky underdogs Liverpool finally overturning the odds to win. And as you say, all they needed to do was not play any of the players they signed this summer.
We're going to break down the game in one moment. What I wanted to know was actually more personal, Raw. We're not really talked about this because I, of course, am an objective journalist to take no pleasure and definitely no schadenfreude in anything that Liverpool do or don't do on the surface. I'm not partisan like you, not a hack. But what I've always wanted to know is, we all watch so much football on a near daily basis, man. Does it actually improve your weekend when your team, and I'm not going to say who your team is just to maintain your pattern of objectivity, Liverpool, when they win?
Yeah, it does, but not in a kind of, I'm not sort of whooping around the house, Rog. That would be very un-Yorkshire. But to be honest, in the context of this weekend, it did make a bit of a difference because it's been quite depressing them losing this many games. When they lost to Palace, I wasn't sad. They're allowed to lose football matches. It's fine. But when your team is kind of in that incipient crisis, it does kind of occupy your thoughts a little bit. Although I would say that it was only second on my list of... I've had 3 football highlights this weekend, Roger, and it was only second. Third was Hearts winning against Dundee to go 9 points clear in Scotland.
Yeah, that was our segment called Today in Scottish Football. Go on,
That's
keep
finished.
going.
But the main one was we had an under-8s game, the Nitros, on Sunday, which we lost 4-3. It was a great game. And again, are
you still the coach now? Your kids are under 8?
One of the coaching team, yeah, one of the coaching staff, yeah.
Oh, it's specialisation at the under 8 level.
Well, you've got to have. There's so many different aspects to it. We've actually had an email from the team we're playing this weekend asking if they can film the game. I'm not sure why anyone would want to watch an under 8s game back, but apparently they do.
Yeah.
But this weekend,
has one of the dads stepped in and been like, "I'm the set piece coach."
Though you don't have a set piece coach now. These days. The set piece with all under 8s is, can you shoot? If you've got a player who can kick it hard enough, shoot. Just the goalie won't save it. But this weekend, Rog, we lost 4-3, which was fine. Good game, really tight. The kids learnt a lot. And my little boy made an absolutely world-class save. And that was my undisputed highlight of the weekend. Tipped it onto the bar. Magnificent.
Are you watching Newcastle United? By the way, I am so used to losing, Raw. I realise this. I actually enjoy it most, if I'm being honest, when Everton don't play at the weekend. They're playing, obviously. So it's like, Oh, but losing almost feels like a default position. I find that when my team win, the joy of that lasts about 5 seconds. The pain of losing, it's like the Liverpool cold. It just permeates everything that you wear.
I think winning is more relief. It was Ruben Amorim said that the other week, wasn't it? That when he wins a game, he's not happy. He's just relieved. And I think that's true for most fans at whatever level of your team plays at. I think the amount of joy we take from victory is vanishing in comparison to the amount of pain we suffer from defeat. And that is a really weird way to spend your leisure time.
It's so fair. I watched the Chicago Bears yesterday. Essentially, if you didn't watch the game, the Bears threw away, I think it was a 15-point lead in something like the last 49 seconds, or what felt like the last 40. It was within 49 seconds. I was seething, like just absolutely in bits, just on the floor, a hot mess. Somehow, they then, with seconds left, worked out how to win. So emotionally, stay with me here. They'd essentially won the game 3 times in the fourth quarter, lost it twice before winning it again finally. And by the end of it, it was that raw. It was less joy. Like, with 49 seconds to go, I was like, why do we do this? What is the pleasure of this? Then they went and won. I was like, oh, this is the pleasure. But it wasn't pleasure. It was just like, it was just a feeling of a bullet dodged. It was the pure relief.
But there's something quite philosophical about that, isn't there? It's the pleasure of not being in pain. So that, in many ways, that is the purest pleasure. Because it's a pleasure you can enjoy all the time that you're not actively in pain. Maybe we should take more pleasure from it. That's brilliant, as you win and you don't have to spend your time worrying about your team. So you're not suffering and you're enjoying the fact you're not suffering. That's good.
But the simplest way to deal with it would be to not support at all. If all you want is respite, that's the crazy... Why am I putting my hand into the electric socket? Just don't put your finger into the electric socket. It makes no sense, which is why I love it.
It's the equivalent of kind of pinching yourself constantly so that you enjoy the bit where you're not pinching yourself when you could just not pinch yourself. Yeah, it's that.
We are all masochists who join here. There is no turning back. We're in it now. Man, let's start this thing with a toast. I want to raise my third first Michelob Ultra of the day to Wrexham, mighty Wrexham, who this weekend, under the Friday night lights, clipped high-flying league leaders Coventry City 3-2, handing Frank Lampard's boys their first loss of the season. Hero, 33-year-old Welsh international, Kiefer Moore, best Moore since Roger, perfect hat-trick, right foot, header, left foot, to deliver finally a kickstart, hopefully, of the season. Statement win for the town, who've now taken 4 points off first place Coventry, second place Middlesbrough, back-to-back games. This championship season, Raw, is just one loaded with wide-open possibility. There's few dominant, consistent teams in the championship. I think 17th place club are just 5 points off the playoff places. We could very well have a crazy, fascinating team in the Premier League with us next season, Raw.
Well, yeah, and anyone who's come to Wrexham through the documentary, the Championship is a rare treat because there isn't another league like it in the world. The Championship is pure, unbridled chaos at all times. To the extent that if a team, say if Wrexham were 18th at Christmas, I'd actually think they stand a pretty good chance of getting into the playoffs because generally the worst thing you can do in the Championship is start well. If you start well, you will fall behind. So no, Wrexham are kind of playing it quite sensibly to an extent. They've obviously strengthened, spent a lot of money. They know that it's a long haul, the Championship. It's a dogfight that lasts for a long, long time. As you say, maybe beating Coventry gives them that little lift, that bit of belief that they can compete with the very best teams in the division. But to be honest, it looks like mayhem even by the Championship standards, Rog, because normally you would have the 3 teams that got relegated last year, Southampton, Leicester and Ipswich. You'd expect them to be in contention to go straight back up. But none of them are. Southampton have just sacked their manager. Ipswich don't seem to be able to kind of click into gear. Leicester is still struggling with financial problems. It's wide open this year, and there is absolutely no reason to believe that Wrexham couldn't potentially make a late run for the playoffs. Everything is possible in the Championship.
Copas Campeones de Campeones. I'm not quite sure what I just said there. And from the Championship to the Champions League, I was going to say lesser Champions League, but I love it in the face. European football is back. And yes, Rory and I drop European nights Tuesday morning to brief you on all you need to know to come. We'll be live throughout the games in the Men in Blazers Discord channel, reliving every moment, the triumphs, the otherworldly moments with you and the rest of the Men in Blazers community. Sign up below to join our Discord right now for free. And then at the final whistle Wednesday, I'll be live on our YouTube with none other than the one and only James Horncastle, the King of Horn, for the big match breakdown. Come be with us to have your say on all of the massive games. To the football, and let's start at the top of the table, Raw, with Burnley 0, Arsenal 2. Surging, resplendent Arsenal, really a clean sheet producing work of art, 4 wins without conceding for the first time in 10 years going into this one. They arrived at that Castle Eyrie that is Turf Moor, place where Burnley had lost just once in 18 months. That was to Liverpool with the last kick of the game via a penalty. And God bless JJ Watt's Burnley. On their own 2-game winning streak, they opened up gamely, press, counter-press, 1-second balls. Arsenal simply rolled upfield off their very first corner. I think 14 minutes in, was it? Set piece again, ole. Declan Rice pinpoint with that cross back post to his favourite target, Gabriel, who headed back, and it was Gyökeres who essentially dunked it in from close range. Ugly, can't miss finish, which is exactly why they brought him in, to do that and to do it now. Raw, bold decision for Burnley. Clearly hadn't watched any Arsenal match video from the past 2 seasons.
There comes a point where you can't really stop it, I think. I'm not sure that we'll come on to this a little bit later, Rog, that there will, I think, be some sort of attempt to counter the set-piece dominance in the Premier League, that teams are going to have to start thinking a little bit outside the box. Literally, possibly, didn't do that on purpose. But at this stage, I'm not sure, even a team like Burnley, who are pretty good at set-pieces themselves, ultimately, if Arsenal get the delivery right, if Rice whips it in, if Gabriel wins the first header, there's not much you can do to defend it. And as you say, Gyökeres is kind of there to snuffle balls in from a yard or two out. That's his job.
Snuffling.
Yeah, he's a snuffler. He's a goal snuffler.
Yes, goal snuffler. By the way, every ugly goal he scores this season, that is exactly what he was brought in to do. And it is magnificent because Arsenal now scored 8 goals in the league via corners this season, most ever by a team in their first 10 games of a Premier League campaign. You hear that, you can say, wow, 8 of 18 goals total. That's, it's a bit sad. It's not. I look at it more like how hard this unit must have trained together for that to become true, Raw. And it's a reflection of something even more admirable to me when I watch Arsenal Football Club. I love what Arteta's building. I admire it probably most greatly because for 3 seasons, all he's heard is bottler from haters. So to develop this, stick it in your face, down your throat, physicality dominant football in reaction to that is pretty tenacious.
It really is. It's testament to kind of his absolute determination to win, I think, and his willingness to persevere, to stick with what he thinks works. I don't know if this is the style of football that Arteta would claim to be kind of a prophet of, in the way that Guardiola, talks about juego de posición and stuff like that. I think Arteta is very much a winner whose interest is in winning. That's what Mikel Arteta cares about. He's crafted and shaped the style a little bit every season until he seems to have found something that works pretty much every time.
Burnley were rocked. Arsenal suddenly resurgent. Their players surging down either flank. Happy if they got a shot on goal. Probably even happier if they just earned a corner. Such was really the panic that each one caused for Dubravka and his back line. It was really desperate stuff for a long period. Burnley hacking off the line to prevent Arsenal from scoring. Actually a big boy goal from open play, but they had no answer in the 35th minute from a long throw. It was actually a Burnley long throw, full field counter. This was stunning. Gyökeres with a crossfield ball that looked beautiful. I'm not sure he meant to find the scurrying Trossard. It didn't matter anyway. He centred, and Declan Rice in the middle with a header from further away, honestly, than I think I can throw the ball, Raw. Then dropped to his knees, dedicated a goal to his late Aunt Bev. It was really beautiful. And I watched it, just the team play, the connectivity, the spark. And I'm like, oh my God, it reminds me of when Big Blue beat a human at chess. If Arsenal have worked out how to score goals from open play, Raw, it's game over for us mere humans, right?
Yeah, I still think they need to do it a little bit more often, if I'm completely honest, Rog. I know that sounds a little bit like either clutching at straws or just deep-seated bitterness.
Two things can be true, Raw.
Maybe it's all true. I mean, everything I say is rooted in bitterness, obviously. But they are an extraordinarily good technical team, Arsenal. They are capable of playing any style of football that they want. I think, in a way, that's why the emphasis on set pieces has caused such a kerfuffle, maybe, that you sense that Arsenal could play a completely different way. If they wanted to be a counter-attacking team, they could be. If they wanted to dominate possession, they could do. If they wanted to cut teams open at will, they could do. And it feels a bit like they've made a choice. My sense is still that over the course of the season, they will hit a run where they don't score 8 goals off corners in 10 games. That will happen. We've said this before. It happened last year. Teams found ways to counteract it. And you want to see them scoring more open play goals, because that is ultimately a much more reliable way over the course of the year of breaking teams down. And I suppose what Declan Rice, who's gone a little bit under the radar in terms of how good his performances have been this season, he tends to be overshadowed a little bit by either, Zubimendi's new, or Odegaard, or Saka, or Gyökeres.
Or Eze.
He's not... Declan Rice isn't the big signing anymore. We know what he's capable of. We have normalised how good he is.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, but you shouldn't lose sight of it. He has been the dominant midfielder in the Premier League so far this season. If they can score more goals like that on the counter-attack, it showcases to teams that not only can you not resist Arsenal set pieces, but if you attack them, you're kind of leaving yourself exposed.
Yeah, but what Arsenal are dedicating to themselves to, it's not the art of set pieces or open play goals. Here's what's incredible about this iteration of Arteta's Arsenal. They have not conceded a goal in 11 hours, 26 minutes of football. I think from that moment on, 2-0 down Burnley, you saw it. They were accepting of their fate. They were like, okay, game over. We are done. We are utterly done here. They will probably hope to get more out of West Ham on the road next weekend. This was a 5th consecutive Premier League win for the Gunners. They kept another clean sheet in the process. I don't think Burnley registered a shot on target. Let alone scoring a goal. And I was kind of fascinated. Celebration police are always out for Arsenal Football Club more than any other club. When they win, people love to lose their minds at the way they react. And what's fascinating here, both when they scored the goals and then at the final whistle, everything just felt confident and almost muted. What was fascinating, it felt like the players expected to score and ultimately expected to win. And this was at a place, Turf Moor, where historically, in modern period, this is exactly the kind of place Arsenal used to go and get a good kicking. But here it felt like no surprise, no big deal, just another step on what I hope is just an epic journey to glory.
Yeah, I think to an extent how hard this game had been overlooked a little bit in the build-up, because there was this expectation. Burnley newly promoted, Arsenal going for the title. Huge economic imbalance between the two, obviously. But Burnley are quite good. I've seen Burnley twice this season. I saw them beat Leeds and I saw them almost get a point against Manchester United. They are a good team. They have some good players. They have a calibre of player available to them that like most of the major teams in Europe would envy. And they are a really effective side. They'll make a decent fist of staying up. If they go down, it will not be without a fight. It was a potential banana skin for Arsenal, I think. That there was genuine peril here. But one of the great triumphs of what Arteta has built, for all that I do think they need to score more goals from open play, they can now mix it with physical teams. They're not afraid of that physical challenge, which, as you say, Rog, undermined Arsenal for so long that they would go to Stoke or to Burnley or to one of the kind of great outposts of the heartlands of the north, and they would be found wanting for their desire to fight and to struggle and to claw and to scrap. But Arsenal do all that stuff now. They do it better than everybody else. They can hurt you on set pieces. They can hurt you on the counter-attack. They will find their way through. They will pick a hole in your defence, no matter how well organised you are. And they don't concede goals. And as you say, I think maybe that's the difference. Maybe the difference is this season it feels like there's a swagger about Arsenal. There's a real confidence of, actually, we are the best team in this division. You should be worried about us. We don't have anything to prove. We know we can do this. We might have gone close 3 years in a row, but we know that this time it's right. And that is a really important quality to have.
It's really amazing. Humanly, it's amazing. To fail 3 times, to have the whole nation just bond together in laughing at you and then rise up. And, are we winners? I do. I watch them play football, and they've almost removed that question mark. We are winners. They are 6 points clear. I'm so happy for Spike Lee. Above everybody. They have won their past 7 games in all competitions without conceding a goal. These are just incredible. Sunday also marked a century of games. This is amazing too. All competitions since they've conceded more than twice. If they keep a clean sheet at Slavia Prague on Tuesday, Arsenal will match a 122-year club record. It's remarkable days. Godspeed, Arsenal fans. You deserve it. Talking about deserving it, trying to be a bigger man. Liverpool 2, Aston Villa 0. Arne Slot's Liverpool in the crucible of free fall. Pressure on. Arne Slot in the greatest way. They were top of the table October the 3rd. Less than a month later, Liverpool found themselves in 7th place before kick-off. So remarkable, really, to see Arne Slot's turn on the rack just kind of come out of nowhere raw. Just so hard to fathom, so sudden. Liverpool 6 losses since September 27th, the most, this statistic, of any team in Europe's big 5 leagues. The Bald Dutchman rested 10 players midweek in the Carabao Cup. A 3-0 subsequent soiling at home to Crystal Palace meant there was an enormous stakes to this game. Everyone was like, you sacrificed then, you better show up. In came City Slayers Aston Villa. Slot promised his style of football wouldn't change, but the players did. Reverts on the bench, joined by Kirkes, replaced by old man Andy Robertson. Raw, are you old enough to remember happier times for Liverpool? When I was like, before this game, I was like, I remember days, I don't know how many years ago, but like you were walking on sunshine. I think Rio was just 16. Everything felt possible. I'm pretty sure Arne Slot wasn't even bald back then. But this dislocation between utter joy to like ashes in the mouth, boom.
Yeah, it's been a really sudden shift. And I think that's what's strange about what's happened to Liverpool this season is that I don't think many fans would quibble with the idea that they've got just about the right amount of points that their performances deserve. There has been this really weird division between those first, 5 weeks of the season where it felt as though Liverpool would always snatch victory at the last. And then all of a sudden, just no, nothing. You can have nothing. It's not kind of win 2 games, lose 1, lose another, win another. There's been no kind of inconsistency. Liverpool have been amazingly consistent, just in 2 completely opposite directions. And that is, I think, unusual. And the sensation of watching Liverpool, of anticipating a Liverpool game now, is totally different. If they told me that the weather was really bad on Merseyside on Saturday night and that they had to cancel the game, I wouldn't have been upset, Rog.
Which is remarkable, just the bipolar nature of that season to this moment. Bipolar also for Aston Villa, who've had almost the opposite experience, just self-soiling for the first, 5 games. Joy, triumph, resurgence in the last 4. 3 years to the day that Unai Emery arrived. And his team started sprightly. They had not won against Liverpool. And they won once, was it, in the last 15? They were coiled, intelligent Morgan Rogers, first to unleash on 5 minutes, spiralling rangefinder of a drive. Marmashvili sprawling, slapped the post. That could have been so different, but Liverpool were really tested in those opening couple of minutes. Simply up their intensity as we saw them do last season. Charged down both wings, trying to hem their opponent in. The Cop tried to exert a certain confidence, whether they felt it or not, I don't know. But they started to sing the Arne Slot song. Soberslai had a chance one-on-one. Challenge was, when Villa broke out, Matty Cash firing fastballs, the discomfort kicked in. Marmashvili bailing him out with strong wrist saves after strong wrist save. Liverpool, though, did look more cohesive. This is what was crazy, Raw. Having none of the new boys in, bar Ekitike, it was almost like Back to the Future. Andy Tuttleby wrote on our Instagram, they look like the old Liverpool suddenly because they are the old Liverpool.
Yeah, you had Ekitike basically playing where I guess Nunez or Diogo Jota would have been last season. And other than that, it was the same system, the same style, it was the same personnel. Mamadashvili obviously is a new goalkeeper, but in terms of the outfield players, everything looked very familiar. I think there's probably quite a lot of fans out there, and I would count myself among them, Rog, who maybe would have felt a lot more comfortable this year had the change come about a little bit more gradually. It feels, not that you want to tell Arne Slot, Premier League title in his first season, how to do his job. But it does feel a bit like, I don't really understand why you had to start Kirkes so often, so quickly. Maybe let him bed in. Bradley obviously had injury issues, which is why Frimpong played and Szoboszlai to an extent at right back. Ekitike has hit the ground running, so obviously you can play him without a problem. But there have been times where it's felt like Liverpool looked like a team that isn't particularly cohesive, because it isn't a team that's particularly cohesive. It had loads of new players in it and was trying to play a new formation. I don't know what Slot does from this point on, but you wonder if maybe he's decided actually this has to be a slower revolution than anticipated.
Yeah, too much, too soon. Liverpool, by the way, talking about Ekitike, had the ball in the net, fine header from him, relief palpable for a second, but then it was ruled off. Peter Drury had an incredible line. Suddenly the cheers are in a Birmingham accent. Within seconds, it would be 1-0. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. And by that I mean your goalkeeper, Villa, Emiliano Martinez. That Villa backline, if you actually watch the game again, looked rushed, playing the ball out the back, harried in that Liverpool press for about 10 minutes before this occurred. Suddenly the crotch-first Villa goalkeeper suffered a total brain spasm, rolled the ball out to, I think it was like Pau Torres, but instead found, oh my God, Mo Salah, who just turned into Mo Salah of last season, rifled the gift home into the open net from a smart angle. 250 goals for Liverpool, only the third player to do it after the great Ian Rush and the legendary Roger Hunt. He's now equal Wayne Rooney's 276 goals for Manchester United, for the most goal involvement in the Premier League for a single club. By the way, I said to Mo Salah, it's like almost every goal of yours rolls up some kind of record now. What was fascinating, as he did it, Raw, almost a sign of his current mindset, the struggles, the challenge, the mentality, not a smile on his face. There was none of the sitting in front of a beloved cop. There was none of his patented Archer celebration. There was none of that in this moment, as big as it was for him. And he would have known, Raw, because he is a player that's very acutely aware of every single goal, every single record. It was just stoic.
Yeah, he's had a difficult time this season, personally and professionally, and he spoke about it after the game, that he hasn't been happy with his performances this season. He hasn't been happy with results this season. That's 2-2 now, and maybe that's the start of a little bit of a turnaround for him. But I think there was a message in that stoicism. It was partly, I'm not happy about how I've been playing and how things have been going, but maybe it was partly, I'm not entirely sure I'm happy with you either, because I'm aware of the criticism. And I think
you want me to get my nipples out, I'm not giving you that.
Exactly. And I do find it, I think one of the things that's been really odd about Liverpool's difficulty, ongoing difficulty, they've got Real Madrid and Manchester City this week. I think there's a very good chance that there is another twist to the corner turning, is the speed with which people turn. You know, they won the league last season. They obviously suffered a tragedy in the summer. Mohamed Salah is their greatest player of the modern era. Certainly the Liverpool's best player since Steven Gerrard. And yet, within you have a month where you don't win all the games, and suddenly it's, well, sell Salah to Saudi Arabia and sack Arne Slot. You can't tell people how to be football fans, how to support their team, but it's not like that.
I mean, it is amazing. I mean, we talked about this before, how when Liverpool had that off-season after Klopp delivered the much dreamt of title win, when there were people all over, so FSG, get out, you're ruining me club. Like that pivot in modern football, just at the extremes. I'm always like, God, I wish FSG would come and ruin my club like they have Liverpool Football Club. But into the second half, it would get worse for Aston Villa. Became utterly blunt. Poor Ollie Watkins. He had just 18 touches, 0 shots in 73 truly sad moments. Second Liverpool goal, again caused by Villa. Coughing it up, playing out the back. Liverpool recovered, charged straight down the gut. Gravenberch charged in, left foot strike, heavily deflected past a flat-footed and quite bemused Martinez. Raw, both goals had the stench of good fortune about them. Does it matter?
Well, no, because I think that ultimately that is what happens in football matches, and I think you could make the case that quite a few of the goals that Liverpool have conceded in the bad run had the stench of bad fortune about them. Sometimes the ball bounces for you. I think the bigger thing was, it seemed odd to me that Villa were trying to play out from the back, when all we've seen in the last month, 6 weeks, is if you don't do that, Liverpool can't hurt you. Like if you go over their press, not only do you get to have as many shots as you like, but you completely negate that pressure, which, I mean, even Jurgen Klopp used to describe as his best playmaker, was pressure. The fact that Villa played into it and paid for it, I think is maybe worth remembering, because it's easy to kind of characterise that style, that direct style, as rudimentary and simple, and all you have to do is this. But a lot of teams can't play it well. A lot of teams aren't set up to play it. They don't have the personnel to play it. So there's a real risk for a manager like Emery. Do you go to Anfield and say, we're going to do something we have never done before against this one opponent and see if it works? Or do you go and say, well, look, we are good enough to try and beat this team that has no confidence, playing the way we normally play? And if that happens, it might mean you play into Liverpool's hands, but also it's staying true to yourself. I think it'll be interesting as the season develops to see how many teams are prepared to completely change their style against Liverpool. To say, just for this 1 week only, we are Stoke 2008. Manchester United kind of did it, and I say that genuinely without any bitterness. They have every right to do it. For Brentford and for Palace, two of the other teams to beat Liverpool, wasn't a massive shift. They just played their normal game, and it suits them perfectly. But what does City do next week? Does City go, well, actually, we're quite happy going along. We did it against Arsenal. We will sit back, absorb pressure, and we'll try and hit you on the counter-attack. Or does City at the Etihad feel they have to play like Manchester City?
God, that's just one of the most intriguing early markers of this season. What Pep does after, remember that Arsenal game, shields up, how he plays it, what they do. We'll talk more about him in a minute. I've got to credit Aston Villa. They kept plugging away till the end. Sancho, quite I'd say a flashing, motivated cameo. Marlon, and a buoyant force of energy. They felt kind of, if we get one, we can get two, but it was not to be. Liverpool, clean sheet, which is been a while. They will not be stripped of their title like Prince Andrew. Anfield rang out to Arne Slot's name. He brought us number 20, and his name is Arne Slot. Really a symbolic riposte to the social media keyboard dickheads demanding he be fired. How do you understand what was different? There was an intensity, there was a cohesion in the press. Key for me was Andy Robertson on the field, both his play, but also so Virgil could focus purely on his game, not to have like an eye on his kind of like scrappy-do fullback Kirkes. Also, difference between McAllister on Wednesday and McAllister yesterday was really, really stark. Or is it just a matter of like, we just got to get Simicast back and we're going to be back to normal? Is it crisis over, Raw, or do we have to now go through the system of reinvigorating all of the new multi-million-dollar talent like Verts, Kirkes and Isak and begin the rebuild all over again?
I don't think it's crisis over. As I say, they've got two really difficult games this week. To me, the biggest difference, Rog, was that Liverpool didn't let Villa create many chances. So obviously they hit the post twice, one of them very early through Morgan Rogers. But if you look at the XG, they were low percentage shots. You know, I mean, the shot from Rogers is brilliant, but also if that goes in, it's a world-class goal. You know, it's relatively rare that goals like that go in. Liverpool restricted Villa to not very many opportunities, which meant that Liverpool didn't concede first. And the way that the lead has gone this season is if Liverpool score first, they generally win. And if they concede first, they generally lose. That's kind of the pattern. Because when you're chasing a game, and Slot said this a million times, you have to take more risks. You leave yourself more exposed. The fact that Liverpool would go into half-time, thanks to Emi Martinez, ahead, that was the thing that made the difference. From here on in, I guess he has to stick with this system. Isak isn't fit, which in a way makes it a little bit easier for the time being to bed the team back into some sort of form and then try and introduce the most expensive player in English history gradually and hope that he can do more than score one goal against Southampton. Kirkes, I think it makes complete sense to let Robertson take the lead for the time being, and Kirkes to take his time to get up to speed what it means to play for Liverpool, what you need to do in that system. The really big question mark for me is Verts, because Verts is a player who you kind of have to construct a side around. You can't say to Florian Wirtz, we want you to play as one of the three, because that's not what you promised him. You kind of have to make him the focal point of your creative endeavours. How Slot does that, I have no idea.
Real Madrid arrive at Anfield on Tuesday, then the visit that we've mentioned of Manchester City next week. Very quick one. Will Anfield embrace Trent, or will they boo him before he comes back on loan?
I think they'd take him back on loan. I think he probably gets booed, but not by everybody.
There you
That
go.
would be my instinct. It'd be more booze than cheers. But there wasn't.
Hedged booze.
Hedged booze.
Hedged booze. That's football. It's why we watch. And from Liverpool too. Oh, gosh, that mighty opponent they will face next Sunday. Manchester City 3. Oh, Bournemouth 1. Golden War Cherries had arrived at the Etihad. I think they'd come 9 times, lost each of them, but they'd never come in second place. Arriving on Andoni Iraola, the Basque gent, that brain in a bottle, many believe will replace Guardiola at City ultimately. They fielded an attacking 11, an optimistic 11, and they opened up with no respect, all-out blitz chess. Junior Krupi finished off a lightning counter started by Tyler Adams inside the first minute. It was offside. It did not need to be. Junior Krupi, the adrenaline of youth. City tried to pound back. O'Reilly and Foden causing moments of panic. Bournemouth sat back, sprung forward, but then sprung forward with a little bit too much abandon. High line, I think it was on Ange Postecoglou, reckless settings, Raw in the 17th minute. Senesi charged forward, tried to press Cherky a little headlessly, and the French recruit just blithely, beautifully, stunningly, what a moment of just improvised genius, nodded the ball into space to unleash the gimp. Haaland into acres of space, halfway of the field rumble in on goal and to finish through the keeper. All that raw milk coming out in that moment. Raw, I know he's just a YouTube influencer, but I also know Mr. Beast does not have 25 goals in 16 games for club or country this season. His celebration, the Haaland robot celly. For me, it was just a very self-aware, unbelievably meta moment, just like a goal-scoring robot does the robot to try and throw us off the scent from the fact that he really is a bloody robot. I'm not falling for it.
He needs to kind of up his game, I think. It is meta, but it's slightly obvious meta reference. So I would prefer it if he kind of pulled away half of his face to reveal like a T1000 thing.
Yes.
That is where we need to be getting to with Erling Haaland celebrations. He's done it get enough practice, Rog.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I am hiding in plain sight. You think I am a robot, I am a robot. Was that what he was saying? It was like wheels within wheels, so were just layers to it. If he just like plummeted his hand into his own body and pulled out just a stream of chips, I'd be less surprised.
It would be. I mean, surely there is a way in which he can get some sort of temporary tattoo of wiring. So if he lifts his jersey up.
Yeah,
it just looks like wiring. That would be a far better. That's the next level of celebration. Special tattoos. I
like this. This is just like two people who don't know a lot about engineering trying to have an engineering convo part of the podcast.
I know enough about footballers to know that the limit of the joke will have been they think I'm a robot. What if I do the robot? That is the joke that Haaland did. Ha 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 ha.
That's amazing. It's like Brian and Bumo. They think I'm bald. I've had a hair transplant. Although that's a little bit different. By the way, Bournemouth, credit them, resilient. This is my moment of the weekend. Let me enjoy it. It was ultimately irrelevant, but from a set piece, God bless, from Wappingers Falls, New York, Tyler Adams, first goal since, I think, played for Leipzig in 2021. Really a significant moment. He told us last time he came on. I actually think he's coming on this week, which I can't wait to talk to him about this goal moment. But he told us last time he came on that Andoni Iraola said, you must add more goals to your game. Here, Donnarumma, let's just say still adjusting to the corner frenzy of Premier League life, flapping at the ball after being quite cleverly and almost fiendishly momentarily distracted by Scott. That's what you see now. On a corner, the attackers will just do something illegal to the goalkeeper, but for a very tiny second. And then he unlocked his arm. Donnarumma was confused. Pep Guardiola later said 100% of foul, criticised the referee, but no one knows what fouls are in corners at the moment. Adams reacted quickest to the slapped him. He had no idea what Selly to do, just shouted out, Ev Nielsen! Ev Nielsen! As if he was like, Ev Nielsen was the most potent goal scorer he could think of. It was a lovely, lovely moment, Will.
It was, and deserved for a player like Adams, I think, who is such a central but such an overlooked part of that Bournemouth team. And as you say, it kind of reward for Bournemouth's bravery in attacking Manchester City. We talked about, with Arsenal, that sense of Burnley saying, OK, you're winning now, there's nothing we can do about this. First of all, I don't think Manchester City quite have that aura back yet. I think teams, as they do with Liverpool, still look at City and think there's a chance here for us. But also, I don't think Bournemouth know any fear, to be perfectly honest. I think they wouldn't look at Arsenal and think we can't score. They'd look at Arsenal and say we haven't scored yet. What about if we try a little bit harder? And that is to Iraiola's enormous credit.
Yeah, I mean, they play high risk, high reward football with that high line, with that press. And again, it was Cherky. You struggle with a thigh injury in terms of playing time this season. Broke that press again with a sublime flick. Haaland, if you look at the play, was actually rumbling forward before his teammate had even released it. Finished from an acute angle. His teammate was actually, I think, celebrating before he'd even finished it. It was reciprocal. Made that finish seem easy. By the way, I'm old enough to remember, Raw, when City goals had to legally come as a result of 25 passes, mesmerically placed together, then pulling the ball back from the byline. Now we just see Haaland charging forward as if he's chasing a raw steak. 13th goal of the season in the Premier League. Ridiculous numbers. We laugh at that Harry Kane scores in the Bundesliga. We're like, yeah, Bundesliga tax. This is the Premier League. The own goals is City's second top scorer. At Sofo, a Liverpool fan, I think, in our Discord pointed out that Haaland's greatest contextual statistic is that he scored more than Everton has conceded, which is some feat. Pep Guardiola, Raw, has coached some of the greatest collective squads we've ever seen in modern football history. Is this his new creation, his new invention? Football's most potent, most powerful one-man team?
Well, Pep, to be fair to him, has always said, if you looked at the figures that Messi racked up in his Barcelona teams, that there was something similar about that. The difference, I think, is Messi fitted that system. Messi kind of was capable of these individual moments of brilliance, obviously. He's Lionel Messi. But equally, he was part of the play. He added to the overall impression, the pattern of Guardiola's Barca. Haaland, it seems like City are now constructed to maximise his opportunities. And the one thing that really struck me in the course of this game was City crossing the ball, and crossing the ball properly to the far post for headers. Because that, for a long time, was the anti-Guardiola move. You know, you kind of retained possession, you horseshoed around the box, you worked the opening. Crossing is, even when done really well, it is kind of surrendering the ball to luck. Because if a defender jumps a little bit higher than your striker or times their leap, you lose the ball and you're vulnerable. But everything about City now seems to be designed to maximise Haaland's opportunities. It's working incredibly well. I should, for the sake of balance, Rog, you know, we said about Arsenal needing to score more from open play. City could probably do with not allowing one player to score all of their goals. That's not a great idea, because if Haaland gets injured, that's a bit of a worry. But, you know, you've got Cherky coming back, Marmoush coming back. There are goals in that team. But at the moment, it does look an awful lot like the story of this Premier League season, for the title at least, is going to be this absolute collective endeavour from Arsenal against Erling Haaland.
Yeah, I mean, it is remarkable. By the way, I thought you were going to say about Arsenal being too reliant on corners. I think City are one of 3 teams in the Premier League who have not yet scored from a corner, which is really rather remarkable. You know, Pep always either chasing trends or creating them. Here, going completely against the grain of what the leitmotif of this season has been. Another incredible Haaland stat. I think he's scored more than 10 Premier League teams in their entirety. When I watch City, I find my eyes just constantly going to Haaland. The moment City get on the ball in and around their own halfway line, his movement, his burst of speed into space is really mesmeric. Almost shocking when someone else scored. Makeshift fullback Nico Riley killed off the game around the hour mark. Seeing someone not named Erling scoring for City, I didn't know it was allowed. Riley actually used the giant Norwegian as a massive decoy, slotted home 3-1. Cue Pep Guardiola kisses. 9 wins in the last 10 home games. City have done it all, as I say, without scoring from a corner. Bournemouth, second loss of the season. The other one on the first day of the season against Liverpool. That not bad, man. I think any Cherries fan, I know a lot of deflated Bournemouth fans in our mailbag, but you would have bitten my arm off at the beginning of this season, and you know you would. City stealthily up to second place. It is fascinating to watch them. Their football is not inevitable. They almost seem fallible yet potent. This is a new City, Rob. Watching Pep blow kisses, watching Haaland do the robot almost seems more joyous because it is so much more human.
Yeah, it's new for Guardiola, and what's really interesting to me about it is that it feels both like a beginning and an end. Because there is obviously something that he is trying to construct at City, a sort of Manchester City 3.0 under Guardiola or whatever. But I don't know whether he's building it for himself or whether he's building it for somebody else, because so much of what he's done this season, signing Donnarumma, kind of recalibrating the team so that it basically feeds into Haaland because they have this one super weapon that they can use. A lot of it feels like the act of a man who wants one of two major trophies this season, and then he rides off into the sunset. And yet, you feel as though this is a new type of Manchester City that's starting to form. This is a new kind of era for the team, where the collective isn't the star, the big blonde Norwegian is the star. And I don't know how to join those two things together.
The big blonde YouTuber. Oh.
Look, it's the future. You say Guardiola's not following the corner trend. He is absolutely following the content creator trend. He's taken someone from the baller lead and put them up front. He's got a YouTuber. What more do you want?
Well, no, Pep's totally committed to this when he starts to play Drewski in the hole. You talk about beginnings and ends. Let's talk about some middles. Nottingham Forest 2, Manchester United 2. A game that took place 1 year to the day. Ruben Amorim took over at Old Trafford. The Portuguese entered this one on a, 3-match Premier League win streak. They back! Trademark, the longest winning run of his tenure. I actually spoke to Amorim on Friday in an interview that we're going to pop out imminently. We went deep, I crap you not, on whether Frank Eilert will ever get that haircut. But into this game, strange bit of spite in the pre-game, based upon comments, I love this, that Sean Dyche, the pundit, made when watching Manchester United, where he kind of boldly claimed he could win games with Amorim's squad playing a 4-4-2, which left Amorim to strike back, forcing Dyche, now the manager, to backtrack before the game and explain. This is like watching a politician. Clickbait kills everything. It's so crazy. If only clickbait could defend corners raw. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In this, Dyche's first home Premier League game in charge at Forest, his team actually started strongly, resolute at the back, full of intent going forward, but 37th minute, United on the attack. Ball, stay with me here, incorrectly judged to across the end line before Forest Nicolas Savona could save it. United were ordered a corner they did not deserve. Corners Forest Achilles heel. And for the second week in a row, the Tricky Trees conceded from a wrongly awarded set piece. It's like the A-team unjustly accused of a crime they did not commit from the resulting corner. Casemiro left to do his best Harry Maguire cover band impression. He rose like a Brazilian slabhead to nod home a free header. Raw, we know VAR can't currently intervene in these situations, but there's over 25 cameras at every single Premier League ground to quickly help, as opposed to, the assistant referee from like 40 yards away just guessing. Corners in our day and age are like penalties. This is a mad one not to automate, right?
Yeah, it's one of those along with kind of first yellow cards that are wrongly awarded that I find really strange. But at the same time, where does it end, Rog? If you're relitigating every single decision, you're kind of changing the nature of the sport. So yeah, Sean Dyche has every reason to be cross that for 2 weeks in a row his team have conceded from a set piece that should not have been a set piece. But at the same time, I'm not entirely sure that's not a price worth paying to not continually be, for a football match, not to basically be waiting around while someone checks a monitor.
This would have taken about 25 seconds. Where does it end? It ends at human truth, Raw, and I believe in human truth philosophically, but don't let me get ahead of myself, and don't let me get ahead of a Sean Dyche halftime team talk, which probably, if I know him well enough, probably involved a couple of shots of Bell's Scotch whiskey and some nut punches handed out to a couple of players who are on this crap list, talking about being switched on, clickbait, switched on, whatever he did, God bless. Forest came out, 2 goals in 102 seconds. First just 3 minutes after the restart. Lovely Forest build-up. Ryan Yates clipped a ball back post. Morgan Gibbs-White, big boy Ahmad to head past a completely outstretched Lomans. 1-1. And then a mere 39 seconds after the restart, Goal ripped straight out the Dyche playbook, deflected cross in the Nottinghamshire night, mad scramble, no one won the header, the ball dropped inside the box, and it was Savona. Oh God, there's a justice to this, who stabbed home. Oh, vengeance, 2-1, Raw, 2 goals in this shorter span. When this happens at this level, I mean, it's just mental lapse, isn't it, defensively?
But it also partly, I always think it's kind of momentum shifting. That, you know, you feel suddenly the team they'd obviously suffered an enormous injustice, Rog, the sort that in years to come will be investigated by various authorities at The Hague. They conceded a corner wrongly. The
Clickbait!
Clickbait. It's clickbait refereeing, that's the problem.
Yeah.
Whistlebait.
Clickbait.
And suddenly, you know, they get a goal, a lovely goal as well from Gibbs White, and the City ground erupts, the noise is there, the momentum's with Forest. I think United's confidence is still probably quite fragile even after those 3 wins. And in those moments, it is dangerous. You see it quite a lot, that games are so finely poised that when momentum shifts, it shifts pretty starkly. I think that's what the truth of the modern Premier League is.
Yeah, I actually admired United in this one. They lacked the cutting edge that we've seen in the past couple of games. In place of that, we actually saw a real resilience. 81st minute off a corner. Remember, no team in the entire Premier League has shipped more from corners this season, Nottingham Forest. Ball half cleared to the edge of the box, where a mad pounced, plucked the ball out of the sky with a left foot of vengeance on the volley. When you saw that, you're like, wow, bloody hell, 99.9% of humans would whiff, obviously, but 99.99% of professional footballers would probably have smashed that high and wide over the bar. Mar just swept it, turned that ball into essentially the unidentified intercontinental ballistic missile in the House of Dynamite. At the death, United could have won it. Another fantastic Ahmad strike, frantically and brilliantly cleared off the line by Murillo. United's winning run taps out at 3. Cue relief. And Murph for the haircut fan keeps living. His meme work keeps going. Where are you on United in terms of their backness?
United are back. I think the official status is that Manchester United are back. They're only not back if they lose a game. I think it's a positive point. It wasn't the smooth, free-flowing, confident performance you'd seen against Brighton, say. And it wasn't the really effective, precise pocket picking against Liverpool. But it was gritty, it was well organised, it was disciplined. It was a tough point at a tough ground against an opponent that is quite close to the bottom of the table and has a lot of reasons to be scrapping. So I think Amorim will have taken that as an enormously positive result, particularly because they came back from 2-1 down to draw 2-2. It will feel like a point gained. I think it doesn't prevent United being back, Rog.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was fascinating, actually, watching Amorim post-game. It didn't feel like the stasis of past average performances where just like everything suddenly feels crap and the fans unload on one scapegoat player or another. That low point of Grimsby feels like it was almost in another life now. The focus post-game kind of just shift immediately to the journey to Spurs next weekend. And a sense, big picture, United can do big picture now. That's probably great progress rather than just gut snap reaction to one terrible result. And a sense that 10 points out of 12 is still an incredibly good run of form.
Given where they were, it's an astonishing run of form. As you say, Grimsby feels like an awfully long time ago. So does the part where it looked basically unfathomable that Amorim would keep his job until his year anniversary. He looks like, weirdly, he's probably in the strongest position now that he's ever been as Manchester United manager, certainly since the first few weeks. It looks like the players are starting to get the principles of what he wants. The win at Liverpool is kind of proof of concept, I think, that this can work. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they were to go to Spurs and lose, or if they were to hit a bit of a rough patch after the international break. I agree with you. It does feel as though United now, for the first time in a long time, are thinking, where does this result fit into our long-term plan? I don't know how permanent that is if they were to have another bad couple of weeks.
I did say to Amorim when we finished chatting, I hope this is the low point, chatting to me, of your time at Old Trafford. Talking to Tottenham. Oh my God, Tottenham 0, Chelsea 1. A game that honestly felt existential before kickoff. Yes, Spurs were in third, but they hadn't really truly excelled. Had a very kind opening fixture list. And their home form, they gleaned a meagre 4 of their total 17 points. That robust, reactive, set-play powered football that they play on the road that I'd seen at the Hill Dickinson can only thrive without the judgment of a hungry home crowd. God bless Chelsea. Also, a team that are an enigma. Football's kind of reigning madhouse, undisciplined chaos. I wrote in the Raven, this game felt like a crossover episode of that old show In Treatment. And I would have bitten your arm off for an episode of In Treatment in the first half. It was honestly hard to watch. It was like watching two teenage kind of scrappers attack each other with very, very tiny hammers. Stop-start fair. Lots of set pieces, lots of injuries, more set pieces. It was grinding in truth. Chelsea, God bless, have beaten Spurs. This is incredible. 4 times running, 5 of the last 6 at Tottenham. So it was almost no surprise when Chelsea took the lead. Mickey van der Ven scored twice at Everton last week. Still in the goal habit, but sadly as creator here. No team have made more mistakes leading to goals than Spurs, who are tied, God bless, with Wolves, which is not where you want to be. The supremely potent Caicedo having a run of form, which has really just established him as the most potent midfielder in the Premier League. He nicked the ball off him, artfully maintained his balance while improvising a slip pass to João Pedro, who had the composure to go all scoop. There it is. Net his first goal for Chelsea since August the 30. Maresca celebrated. Thomas Frank kicked a water bottle in disgust. That's why we watch Raw, isn't it? For the cinema.
It is. And the shot of Maresca celebrating in Ultra HD, 4K, Maresca wearing that kind of lounge wear that makes him look a little bit like he's about to mug a grandma. And then in the background, you just had this very svelte Danish man kicking something. That was better than anything that happened on the field. The one thing I'd say about Caicedo, he is holding Chelsea's season together. He is the project. He's the franchise. Because they paid a huge amount of money for him. He is worth every penny. If Chelsea are to build on their Club World Cup win, if they are to kind of turn this into a positive season, if they're to learn, if they start to ape the Dodgers, Rog, and maybe have a little bit of glory, it's going to be about Caicedo. And it's strange that, we'll occasionally talk about City has been a one-man team in Erling Haaland, or there have been spells when United are a one-man team with Bruno Fernandes. Chelsea, especially without Cole Palmer, it is Moises Caicedo and 10 other people.
God bless. Come back to us, Cole. Come back. Premier League is better with you, and this game would have been better. Vicario kind of kept things close. There was an incredible smother of a João Pedro shot. Game became just niggly, quasi-intentional fouls in there. Tottenham looked disconnected. They looked discombobulated. They looked mistake-prone. They were booed off at half-time. They couldn't create. Xavi Simons departed. 1 assist. No goals in 12 games with the club. Barely a dent in this one. Tottenham, honestly, I love the club. But watching that place, it really scared me. I was thinking about the Hill Dickinson. It felt airless in that stadium. The host barely laid a glove on Chelsea. I mean, if they wanted to prove that they could ball at home, this was the complete opposite of that. That was what was frightening about this. It was Vicario stopping a crushing beatdown. Tottenham had an XG of 0.05, 1 shot on goal at home. I want to talk about this, Raw. This is crazy to me, this double nature of Spurs under Thomas Frank. At home, they're like Dr. Donald Blake, scrawny human with a lame leg. But when he strikes that walking cane on the ground, he could become Tottenham away. Thor, the mighty god of thunder. 4 points from their first 5 league games at home. Joint worst ever Premier League start there. The Thomas Frank kick of the water bottle was probably the closest they came to scoring. Spurs fans left foaming, left to decode the Mickey van der Ven and Jed Spence snub of their manager's handshake at full time as if it was like the Zapruder film. This is where we are now as football fans. How do you understand their complete impotence at home when they're so superlative anywhere but in North London?
I think it's what you said, Rog. I think that teams have to play a certain way in front of their own fans. I think there are certain things and certain fan bases that won't accept what appears to be passivity, even if it's deliberate, even if it's strategic. I think, and I put Spurs certainly in that category. There is a sense that they have to exert agency on games at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, whereas on the road, on most occasions, they can benefit from the fact the other team is meant to have the ball a bit as well, that their fans will tolerate that. There's quite a few teams like that. I think West Ham are like that. I think West Ham fans expect their team to try and make the game at home. I think it's probably true of Everton, isn't it? That at either Goodison Park or at the Hill Dickinson, Everton fans don't really like it, in my memory, if their team sits back and tries to absorb pressure. They won't really tolerate it.
Yeah, I mean, the Spurs story this season is so complicated. You know, they're in fifth place, but they're getting booed off. It reminds me of like that joke at the beginning of Annie Hall. What is it, like the old joke about the bad food at the Catskills Hotel? It's terrible tasting, yes, and in such small portions. By the way, this statistic: the starting front four in their last 5 Premier League games for Spurs have not registered a single goal involvement. They've almost replaced the days of the reckless highline with this very, very stilted, un-Spurs-like DNA kind of fare. For Chelsea, a 1-0 win. That actually sounded closer than it was. Chelsea could have had goal after goal. By the way, 2 goals just in injury time. Didn't need them. 6 wins in 7 visits to Spurs. That blip against Sunderland corrected from the week before. And you can tell at the end, the way they celebrated. I'm not sure whether Spurs are a rival or just a weakling that they love to beat up, feel all the better about themselves. We will see. Biggest win of the weekend for Chelsea. No red cards, baby. From Spurs to clubs in real trouble. Fulham 3, Wolves 0. By the way, lost in everything we're about to discuss. Relief for Fulham ending a 4 successive league loss run. Cruise really against 10-man Wolves. Their manager at the time, Vitor Pereira, called the performance, quote, the worst of my tenure. This was a tenure with no wins in 14 games, 189 days, so he had a lot to choose from. His own travelling fans sang prophetically, you're getting sacked in the morning. Came to be true Sunday morning. Wolves, bottom of the Premier League, without a win from their opening 10 games this season. Fired their manager. The 4th dismissal of this campaign. More permanent sackings in the Premier League at this stage of the season than any other before. This is where we are now. Every single move is so costly. The crazy thing about this, Pereira lasted just 45 days after being handed a new 3-year contract. Talking about costly, that's almost reckless board behaviour, which we'll discuss on another day. But Vitor Pereira, what an arc he had. Less than a year, arrived last December, Wolves in 19th place, and they've taken like 9 points from 16 games. Totally resurrected the team, joyously harvested 33 points from 22 games. They were safe by April, but then they sold Cunha to Manchester United, sold Ryan Ait-Nouri to Manchester City. The squad a shadow of itself. This season been really a garbage can on fire. The meta question is, do we ever know how good a manager really is?
No, just managers are totally dependent on context. And I think clubs generally are kind of reluctant to acknowledge that. So Pereira came in when Wolves were at a really low ebb, and he was clearly exactly what that group of players needed at that exact time. He was this kind of passionate, quite irascible, very intense figure. And the results were spectacular. As you say, they were safe by April. By the end, it didn't really feel as though they were in a relegation battle. And only part of that was because the 3 teams that went down, the 3 newly promoted sides, were dreadful. Apart from Ipswich, who were okay. At that point, if this was 1990s Italy, Rog, Wolves would have said, Vitor, thank you for your service. We're going to appoint somebody else now. Italian football has this concept of the traditatore, which is the ferryman, the guy who guides you from one side of the bank to the other. And at the end of the season, the clubs don't give them long contracts. They say, thanks, bye. We're going to go and get someone who we think can fulfill our longer term ambitions. And often what happens is that doesn't work out. So they go and get another ferryman at the end of that season. Whereas in England, we still seem to have this kind of quite sweet, naive loyalty where we think, well, this tiny sample in these extreme circumstances, that feels exactly indicative of what's going to happen next season. Here's a 3-year contract. I was at Wolves' game against Newcastle a few weeks ago, and do you know what? Wolves were okay, to be honest. They put up a fight. They're a big physical team. They worked hard. They lacked a bit of quality, but you could sort of see something coming together at that stage. And Pereira afterwards was full of kind of optimism and fight and all that stuff that you'd expect. But at the same time, you look at what's happened around him to the squad at Wolves, not just in Pereira's time, but over the last 2 or 3 years, it's been continually weakened. There doesn't appear to be any long-term vision. as we're recording, Rog, the person that they look like they're going to appoint is Gary O'Neill, who's the guy they sacked last time.
It's amazing.
This is not a well-run club. This is not a club that's got an idea of where it wants to be. This is not a club that's capable of saying to a manager, you have done the thing we wanted you to do. Thank you very much. We're going to appoint somebody else. And clubs like that eventually get relegated.
By the way, I'd love to see Wolves now. This is their mode. Just like have this tandem of coaches. Gary O'Neill replacing Vitor Pereira, and then Vitor Pereira replacing Gary O'Neill. And just like for the next couple of seasons, this is our duo. We're just going to new manager bounce our way perpetually to like 16th, 17th place.
It's as good a plan as whatever Wolves are actually doing, Roch.
It's amazing. Talking about plans, West Ham 3, Newcastle 1. What? The Hammers? Honestly, before this one, living in purgatory. Worst start to a Premier League season in team history. And Nuno's team began in a self-soiling way. A reminder, if we needed it, that life is cruel and football is crueler. First, Jared Bowen cut inside, unleashed a stunning shot, but it bounced off the post. And just 26 seconds later, holy crap, while the West Ham bubbles from pre-game were not even done popping, all their hope and optimism still glistening in the London sky, Jacob Murphy just raced downfield, lashed one low from distance. The West Ham backline just seemed to welcome him with a convoy on his way to goal. And I was braced for toxicity, West Ham surrender. Instead, God bless, this West Ham winless since the 31st of August. They even had a penalty overturned. But maintain their intensity, maintain their focus. This was so bloody admirable. Kept attacking. 36 minutes. Somerville shot, punched out by Pope, only to Paqueta. He struck from long range, dipped like a Pulskine sink ball. And then on the cusp of half-time, Wan-Bissaka got in behind, slapped across, Botman stretched, poked it home. Actually made the difficult finish look very easy, just as Nuno drew it up. Newcastle, very odd team, a bit like Spurs in reverse. They turned into a dread team on the road. I think they scored just twice away all season. Didn't mount a shot on goal when they were chasing the game until the 90th minute. Only for Souček to stab home a late backbreaker. God bless the Magpies, without an away win since April, which is really an anathema. I don't understand Newcastle at all, Raw. They're almost an entire symbol of this season's Premier League unpredictability, trapped inside one team. Is it a matter of like Champions League battling on three fronts is just too much for this team, this squad, this club?
I mean, that has to be part of it, I think. Although it got a little bit lost because of the sort of furore over Isak. But I actually thought Newcastle did really well this summer to strengthen their resources. Just last time they were in the Champions League 2 years ago, it had really cost them. They hadn't had the strength in depth to compete across 2 or 3 fronts, however you want to qualify it. And it looked to me like they bought their way out of that problem. You know, they've got backups in pretty much every position. They have real strength in depth. I think there is an issue that Eddie Howe is quite reliant on a core of players. So Nick Woltemade, who's been a great signing, I think had played 5 games in 15 days. When he walked onto the field at the London Stadium, he looked like he had played 5 games in 15 days. There's a point at which Newcastle maybe have to trust their reserves a little bit more. Will Osula, the striker, had done really well in the Carabao Cup in the week. That's a factor. But I think, to be honest, the second bit of what you said is the more accurate factor. It is that Newcastle do kind of sum up what the Premier League is now, which is the margins are really fine. Everyone's quite balanced. And you will get a lot of teams who are really good at home and not very good away, because all that's changed is kind of the opposition's style of play, or the opposition's momentum, or the opposition's kind of the balance of the game has switched because the opposition are at home, and that changes everything. I think we'll see a lot of teams who have that kind of dichotomy of performance. The weird thing, I guess, is Spurs, who were inverting it by being terrible at home and good away. But I think that will happen a lot because the margins are so fine now.
Joy for Nuno, first win in his 5th game after gleaning just 1 point to this point. Q wore bubbles of joy. It was the first home win for the Hammers since February 27th, but West Ham are now just 3 points from safety with Burnley to play next weekend. Glimmers of Hammer hope, or as Paul Atridi said in our Discord, did the Premier League's blindest squirrel just find a nut? Come on, you Irons. In other games, Brighton 3, Leeds 0. Dr. Leeds almost cured a run of 2 straight Brighton losses. Leeds hadn't won on the South Coast in 16 agonising years here. They were undone by the quite electric Yakuba Minto, cut them apart at will, and goals from the resurgent Danny Welbeck, and 2 from young Paraguayan stud Diego Gomez, ex-Inter Miami. Danny Welbeck, though, Raw, not played for England since September 2018, 7 years on. More potent than ever. Dude is honestly like a Hims commercial. He's about to turn 35 this month, equal top scorer in the Premier League. Danny Welbeck for England.
Leading English scorer, I think, but obviously behind Harry Kane, if we're including Harry Kane. There's an argument that Welbeck should be there, just as a finisher. He's one of those players, Welbeck, who his chronological age may not match his football age, because he missed quite a lot of his early career through injury, and I always think that tends to mean, in a kind of yin and yang vibe, you get a longer tail in that situation, rather than someone like Wayne Rooney, who was playing every 3 days at the age of 17. By 30, he's burnt out. It's a bit like Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 minutes theory, Roger. I have a theory that you have so many football matches in your legs, and you get to use them all up. It's just that some people burn through them really fast and some people spread them out a little bit longer. So I wonder if Welbeck is in the second camp.
You do as a viewer as well. Use those games, just pace them out. You'll live longer. One lovely Leeds note. We had a great conversation last week with the quite ferociously tenacious Brendan Aronson, where he talks really from his heart about his return to Leeds, which was not easy, and how he's found his rhythm there, and please God, his place in the current US men's squad. One of the sweetest gents in football, Brendan Aronson. Give it a watch at the link in the show notes. Talking about great Americans, Chris Richards, Crystal Palace 2, Brentford 0. Fixture pile-ups. Palace set to play a quite insane 4 games in 8 days, because they've reached the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup, lolloped back from thrashing Liverpool midweek in that Carabao, and gritted out a quite comfortable return to victorious ways. Jean-Philippe Mateta's 8th goal of the season off a set piece, deep flick on, back to the centre. He just charged in with a header. If you've not seen this header, find it. He just calculates physics, angle, velocity in the blink of an eye. It's amazing how good at maths you can be, Raw, when you really want to conjure a reason to kick a corner flag.
That's the great inspiration that a lot of the stalling systems are missing, I think, Rog. That if that was the reward for doing physics, people would do it more often.
I would have done my sums.
Yeah.
We have Sunderland's victory at home to Everton still to come this afternoon, Raw. They could go second.
They could go second. The league table is fascinating, Roger, and I wrote about this in the Correspondent last week, that I think this is the new model of the Premier League, where you look between, let me just do my maths, speaking of maths here, Roger, let me just do my maths, carry the 3, that is there are a grand total of 9 points between second and 17th. That's not very many points. You know, if you're Aston Villa in 11th or Brighton in 10th and you win a game, you could conceivably go third.
It's all just remarkable. And by the way, so is the Correspondent, your newsletter, which is available via our website. It's my favourite thing we do. I'm braced for this afternoon. David Moyes returning to the stadium light for the first time since he left a quite bereft, bedraggled, relegated Sunderland in 2017. How much both he and Sunderland have suffered, but also rebounded since then. Also, Jordan Pickford returns emotionally. He'll get an incredible welcome to the club he joined the youth academy at, was a huge fan of as a kid. It's really his first club. At a time when the club feel utterly resurgent. And by the way, Jordan Pickford, they say never meet your heroes. I say, who are they? Jordan Magnificent. I learned so bloody much about life and football by hanging out with him last week. Find that interview on our YouTube, also linked below. But it's time, Raw, for a question from our bulging mailbag. This one from the quite great Mike Brown in Seattle.
Hello from Seattle, Washington. That's Mike, not me. I'm in Yorkshire. I love your weekly takes on the Premier League, and I look forward every week to the MIB pod. I especially love all of Rory's Yorkshire anecdotes. Who doesn't? I spent about a year working in Leeds as a consultant, helping the then Halifax Building Society, now part of the Bank of Scotland, introduce the first telephone banking centre in the UK. And it's a great telephone banking centre. We're very grateful. Thank you. I worked in a building that I believe has now been replaced by the Bridgewater Place complex. Little side note here, Rog. Bridgewater Place is what passes for a skyscraper in Leeds.
How many stories?
Three or four.
It's made out of mud.
It's they built it. There's this sort of weird tacit competition between Leeds and Manchester to have the tallest building in the north. Leeds built Bridgewater Place, and in the time that it took them to do it, I think Manchester put up two that were roughly twice the height.
It is 32 floors. I've just Googled it. God bless.
Imagine that, 32 floors high in the sky, Rog.
It's like Nick Voltemorder's tool. Keep going, baby.
It's not normal being that high up. When my Seattle-based company sent me to work there, I'd never ventured much north of London, so I had no idea what to expect from post-industrial Leeds. I wound up loving both the Yorkshire people and Yorkshire itself. Leeds is also where I learned to enjoy a pint of bitter, different type of bitter, specifically Tetley's, at the pub after work. Lastly, I'll forever be indebted to Leeds for introducing me to Terry's Chocolate Oranges, which has become a staple Christmas gift from me to my family every year, along with a few for myself. It's the best way to eat them. Now to the questions. I have two. Pub question. What's your favourite pub in Leeds? And given that we're seeing teams go direct again without shame, do you think we'll ever see the re-emergence of the football hard man? Is it just the American football and hockey fan in me that thinks a Javier Mascherano-like player is just what the doctor ordered for Liverpool's current vulnerabilities? I have fond memories of Javier, and not so fond memories of Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira, putting fear into opposing teams and sometimes their own. Is the extinction of the midfield enforcer, defensive destroyer, another thing to hold against VAR? It was great seeing Rog in Seattle a few weeks ago. Next time, bring Rory with you for the World Cup. Courage.
Oh, Raw. I'll answer the pub one first, because I went to university in Leeds. Whitelocks Ale House in the city centre. I think it was founded in like the 1700s, early 1700s. I'd say a pint for there is a pint for life that you'll never forget. But Raw, the honours are yours.
I would, in Leeds itself, also Whitelocks. Whitelocks is an institution. That is the correct answer. It's the best pub in Leeds.
I had a Yorkshire pudding in Whitelocks, which was genuinely life-changing.
Outside the city centre, there's a few. I quite like the Three Horseshoes in Headingley. That's where we did a lot of semi-legal drinking as children. Say illegal drinking as children. They didn't know it's different ownership. It's fine. It's not libelous. And there's lots of lovely country pubs around, Rog. If you go out into the wonderful Yorkshire Dales, the Fleece in Addingham is a favourite. So there's no shortage of pubs. In terms of the midfield hard man, I don't think we can blame VAR for that. I think it was disappearing long before VAR came on the scene, and I think it's to do with the gradual but definite kind of protection of attacking players in the rules. That there's been this real move by FIFA and IFAB, which is the shadowy body that sets. That's how you have to describe them. Shadowy body IFAB. No one knows who's on it, but it's British. It's the most British thing about football now is that the IFAB is the body that sets the rules, basically.
Clickbait!
And there are 8 people on the board, and 4 of them have to be British, because ultimately it's still ours. This whole thing is still ours. You don't get to have it yet.
We used to have an empire. Now we have 4 members of IFAB.
That's all we need. And to be honest, it's much more efficient than having to run a whole empire. So I think there has been in the last 20 years, a deliberate attempt to make the game as fertile ground as possible for creative attacking players, which is why we've seen the kind of erasure of the midfield hard man. But I think Mike is completely right. As a Liverpool fan, I would have said if you shoved somebody in there who could really kind of snap into tackles, that would probably help solve quite a lot of the problems. And I think there's quite a few teams who are a little bit like that. If you look at the players who pass for defensive midfielders now, there's very few who you'd say fit that kind of Mascherano hardman mould. There's no Thomas Gravison knocking about, Rog, I would say. That said, there are players who are a little bit more kind of combative and dynamic who would be able to hold their own with your classic midfield hard men. Sandro Tonali being maybe the best example of that. Moises Caicedo. These players would not look out of place thundering into a 2-footed tackle with Javier Mascherano. So they do still exist. They're maybe not quite as pure and uncut as they used to be.
God, I don't think we'll ever see the hard man in the game again. There's just too much money, too much at stake, too much football on the calendar with too many injuries. So I think, if anything, the protection is only going to increase and increase. A little bit like the NHL that you love. By the way, I did meet Jim Beglin for the first time last week. A lovely, lovely man at Everton. He's a commentator on a lot of games, Jim Beglin. You may have heard the name. I told him actually that he makes me laugh. He makes my kids laugh too. He was a left back forever at Liverpool when I was a kid. And when he commentates now on Everton games, there'll always be a moment like a horrific foul of Illiman and Dye or someone, and they'll show a replay of Illy being like borderline decapitated. I told Jim Beglin this. I said, you are guaranteed to say as his like teeth fly out of his mouth, he'll always say, "Oh, I don't see anything in that. There's nothing in that." And so we're chatting about the hard man. I asked him who's the hardest man he ever played with, Raw, and he didn't have to wait a beat. I was actually surprised by his answer because he played with some proper monsters. He said Ronnie Whelan.
Really?
Yeah, he said he was a Liverpool, an Irish midfielder, listeners, just a bruising wonder. He said he used to watch Ronnie. He said Ronnie's move was when there was a 50-50 ball in midfield, he'd always slow down right before getting in there, so it became a 60-40 ball to his opponent's advantage. He said just so he could go in over the top. And he said we'd watch it week in, week out, and you'd almost, as a fellow player, you'd brace yourself knowing that was about to occur. Like it was almost hard to watch. That, dear listeners, is why Jim Beglin always says, I don't see anything in that.
Jim Bedlin's a really nice man. And to be honest, Rog, even a little bit further forward, you still had stuff like that. I spoke to an ex-player the other week, I won't name him, who was sent on in a game in maybe the early to mid 1990s with the specific instructions to 2-foot somebody because the manager wanted to have a fight. So football used to be the team was losing. The manager didn't want there to be lots of questions afterwards about why the team lost. Yeah. So he decided it would be better if there was a mass brawl on the pitch, and he needed someone to start it. And that's what football was.
By the way, that football, the NHLification, that's what it would take to get it to really go over the top here in the United States. Mike Brown, send us your postal. I hope you're enjoying your beautiful, beautiful Kraken. We will send you a coveted MIB patch. Keep sending your letters and questions for Raw and me to meninblazers@gmail.com. That's it for today. We're in New York City this week. We have Ruben Amorim coming on. We got Antoine Semenyo joining us. We got Euro Nights tomorrow. James Horncastle, the King of Horn, on Wednesday on YouTube. Huge thanks to you, Raw, your Crown Prince of Harrogate.
It's been a pleasure. I'll see you for European Nights.
Oh, this is Rog sending you big love. Let's not take a second of watching football together for granted and courage.